Take a Man podcast, Denton Day and Logan Paulson. Craig will be back next week. Should be getting back from Paris in the next couple of days or so. With the joint practice coming up, Logan, there are a couple of matchups that I'm really excited about. And I think the first one, hoping that Brandon Coleman is going to be a full participant, is just to see what he is going to look like against this Jets defensive line. You know, the Jets offense when Aaron Rodgers got hurt last year was atrocious, but their head was above water for a majority of the season because the defense was insane. And Robert Saleh has done a really good job of making it a focal point to have a bunch of really good dudes on that defensive line. So I am really excited to see what a guy like Brandon Coleman, who's getting his first action against somebody else in the NFL, to see what he can do. But I've also been kind of a firm believer this offseason that while the offensive line wasn't by any stretch great last year, I don't think they were nearly as bad as people wanted to make them out to be last year. And that's for a number of different reasons. But I'm excited to see what the offensive line is going to look like against a Jets defensive front that has a lot of really high expectations this year.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you got Jermaine Johnson, you've got Quentin Williams, you got a whole bunch of guys on that front that are special or could be special. You know, they've got Will McDonald, who was a first-round pass rush specialist. That's kind of their 2 rotational guy, right? They've got Hassan Reddick, who probably won't practice, but they've got a lot of juice on that defensive front. And so I do think it's a great test, not only for Brandon Coleman, but the entire group. Like when we're in one-on-ones, if they chose to do that, or in team pass or in team blitz, like, let's see how those one-on-ones look, man. Let's see if we can match the intensity, the speed of this group. And so I think that's great. I also think, you know, on the outside, just everybody versus that defense, I think, is a win. Sauce Gardner versus Terry McLaurin, right? Like, think about that matchup. Mosley versus B-Rob. Like, there's so many different narratives and just ways to kind of see where the roster's at, like, that I think are awesome. You know, like, it's the same thing like when we went up against when I was in San Fran and we went up against the Denver Broncos and Von Miller was there. It's like we thought we had a pretty good pass rush, and then we saw Von Miller, we're like, oh no, actually we don't. You know, like, and so I think that's what this will show you, and it'll show where guys are, and that's why we're doing this. That's why we're playing this game, right? Is to kind of say, hey, Terry's looked good against Forbes and Davis, but how's he look against Sauce? And maybe he looks as good against Sauce as he does against Forbes, like hypothetically speaking. You say, well, maybe Forbes isn't having that rough of a camp after all, or whatever it looks like. You know, not that Forbes had a rough camp, but I'm saying those couple of explosives Terry catches, you know, obviously he's doing that to everybody. So I'm ecstatic to check that group out. In terms of Brandon Coleman specifically, I think it's just, I can't wait. For him, he's like the one person I cannot wait to see. Like, because if he looks good, how special would that be for this organization to find a quarterback of the future and a left tackle of the future in their first draft on rookie contracts? Like, I mean, that's like Christmas for any football fan.
That's what I've been dreaming about and praying about really since they hired Adam Peters. Now, I'm curious because, so you mentioned that you were a part of the joint practices with here with the Houston Texans and the New England Patriots. The Houston stuff, I think a lot of fans remember because the video that goes viral, it feels like every single year with DeAndre Hopkins and D'Angelo Hall. But I remember those practices with New England for like one little soundbite. I don't even know if it was a soundbite or if it was just a quote after, where Robert had asked Tom Brady for advice, and Tom Brady was, I will give it to you when I retire. And then one of those two guys played another 10 years and won 4 Super Bowls. Jeez Louise. And then the other guy, unfortunately, was not here that much longer. Do you think Aaron Rodgers is going to be nicer to Jay Daniels than Tom Brady was to Robert?
You know what's funny is, like, this is maybe a little aside, I actually thought Tom Brady was really cool. Like, I remember him coming over and talking to Jordan Reed about, like, how he ran routes and how he saw stuff. And, you know, and so I do think, like, you know, there are things that guys are willing to share, and there are things guys are not willing to share. And it's just about how you talk and communicate through some of that, you know, because, like, guys aren't going to give you all their trade secrets, but when I was playing with Kirk was dogmatic about talking with multiple different quarterbacks. Like, he used to talk to Drew Brees, like they had an agent crossover or something, and he would pick Drew Brees' brain all the time. And Drew Brees was very, very accessible with some of that stuff. Not everything, but a lot of stuff. And I think there are things Aaron's going to talk about and help Jaden with, and there are things he's going to be like, hey man, you got to figure this out. And I think that's totally appropriate, because that's how some of those top end quarterbacks kind of keep their edge, is kind of
Right.
saying, I have this thing that no one else does that's mine. And I think that's totally reasonable.
I would love to see from Jaden in the joint practice. And I kind of hope, I don't know if New York does this. I would really love it if they did what Baltimore did last year, which is stream it. So those of us that are not in New Jersey can get a good idea of kind of what's happening. But I really hope that we see some of the stuff we talked about on our previous episode earlier this week about Jaden's command of the offense and knowing everybody's role and having that command at the line of scrimmage. I really hope that we see the continuation of that against somebody else when it's a team on the other side that doesn't have your best interest at heart because you are not supposed to be the savior of that organization. I hope that all the good things that we see really continue against somebody else in what I'm sure will be a somewhat hostile environment.
Yeah, I talked about Brandon Coleman and how excited I am for him. I mean, I probably was being over enthusiastic because, I mean, really the number one evaluation data point in this joint practice is Jaden Daniels, like the number one thing. If he looks good, if he looks like he can handle what the defense is presenting, if he looks like he can still play with the same level of confidence and anticipation and speed, then I think we're going to be all right. But that's a big if. And that's why we're doing the joint practice, is to see if it's effective, right? See if he can be effective. And so, if you are a reporter, like I know Kime and Bram are going up there to watch practice, like if you talk to anybody, like all they want to see is him, because I think everyone understands that if he goes and he's successful, like this organization and this franchise is going to be successful. Maybe not this year, maybe not 2 years from now, but sooner rather than later. So that's a huge point, and it's the same thing for the Miami joint practice. So really can't wait for him. Can't wait to see what he's presenting and what he brings. And I hopefully he looks as sharp or close to as sharp as he's done the last couple of weeks here in Washington.
Well, on the defensive side, I'm really excited for whether it's Forbes, St. Juste, Michael Davis. I mean, hell, even Mikey Sanders still.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Garrett Wilson. I have
Yeah.
been since he was in college. I mean, watching him in college at Ohio State, the guy was insane. I'm excited to see those guys work with him, work against him. He's been a guy that has suffered, at least statistically, because there really have not been a lot of good quarterbacks to throw him the football outside of Rodgers for 4 plays. But I'm really excited to see what they can match up against him, because it's one thing, right? Like Forbes has had some success against Terry McLaurin, and St. Juste has had success this offseason as well. But I think it is a different element when you're not only doing that against a really good wide receiver who is one of the next up and coming guys in this league in Garrett Wilson, but then also when Aaron Rodgers is the one throwing him the football, because we have about 20 years of history that showcases that Aaron Rodgers doesn't exactly make a ton of mistakes.
No, I think that's 100% right. I think, that's that relation, especially because you're going to get to see Aaron Rodgers in the practice, right, as opposed to in the game. And so you're going to get to see that tremendous arm talent, that tremendous ball placement, all those different things that he brings with Garrett Wilson, who to me, like you said, is one of the best kind of up-and-coming receivers in the NFL. So I don't know. I think it's going to be a great opportunity to kind of see, again, where the secondary is at as a whole. Because talk about a guy who won't get flustered by pressure. Talk about a guy who's going to be able to find the best matchup. Talk about the guy who's going to throw it to space, like Aaron Rodgers, man. And with maybe the best arm in football. So I think, I'm not going to be able to go because I have other commitments. But that is going to be something like whoever's covering that, I definitely want to hear. I want to see about it because I think that's going to be really telling.
So the game itself this weekend, 12 p.m. Eastern time, Commanders and Jets. What are you hoping to leave that game with? We'll likely see the starters 10 plays, maybe 14 if we're super lucky. What are you hoping to leave that game with after watching some of the starters and some of the backups?
Yeah, I mean, I really think this is a game that's going to be more for the backups. It's the first preseason game, so what the starters are going to play, I don't know, 10 snaps, maybe 10, I don't know, 15. And so, when the starters are in, I want them to be sharp. I want them to be crisp. Like, that's what I want. Efficient, offensively, defensively. Are we communicating? Are we getting things checked? Are we in the right position? Are we making tackles? Right. And then as we go down, I want to see those guys that are going to compose the back half of the roster. I want to see them and how they look. I want to see, the Dominique Hamptons, the Tyler Owens, the Norrell Pallards, the Benny Potoais, like those guys that are going to fill this sucker out, like, what do they look like? We talked about Bryson Tremaine already, but Mitchell Tinsley, like, does Jamison Crowder look good returning punts? Does he kind of carve out a niche for himself? Does Luke McCaffrey catch the football? Those young running backs, the young tight ends, the backup offensive line, like that. The thing, this is the thing, is one of the reasons the depth chart is so subjective is because this evaluation point hasn't occurred yet. And now as fans, we have an opportunity to get a true evaluation of what they're doing. So I really can't wait for the game. I think it's going to be awesome. Again, it's going to be simple. It's nothing going to be too complicated, but I think it's going to provide a great opportunity for us to understand more clearly this depth chart and what the coaching staff is thinking.
There's two guys that I really want to see perform well outside of Jane Daniels because, I want to see the quarterback play well. I've heard a lot of good things about Jordan McGee. I love when I'm sitting there watching, if I keep seeing his name and his number pop up, and then I am hopeful because I'm rooting for him. I'm hopeful Jamin makes at least a play or two. That makes you say, like, all right, this is moving in the right direction. I want to see him do well. I will admit, a little nervous about that. But that's what I'm hoping for. Logan, you're the man. I'm excited for this weekend, my friend. I look forward to talking again. Thank you for having me for the week. And Craig, I'm sure Craig's itching to get back with you.
Yeah, man. Thanks for helping us out, man. You did a great job, and it's always a pleasure.
He is Logan Paulsen. I'm Denton Day. Craig is back next week. Everybody enjoy the preseason game this weekend. This has been the Take Command podcast.
Thanks for watching this clip of Take Command, which has a brand new home.
That's right. You can watch on YouTube at the Team 980.
You can also listen to full episodes in the free Odyssey app, which is now enabled with Apple CarPlay. So we'll just, follow you around.